Yeah. Blackjack. Life is like a game of cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Yeah. Blackjack. To play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother. What's up? Straight Game. Exclusive Tupac story. Never told. On this night in particular, it was 1993 and I was standing outside on the corner hustling in my neighborhood when one of my homeboys, Wampus, had drove through the neighborhood and he stopped and he asked me, he said, "Yo, you want to go to the Bowie State homecoming tonight?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, but I ain't got no ticket though." He was like, "Don't worry about that, I got you." So we proceed to drive to Bowie State University, which is about 30 minutes from where I live. When we get there, it was packed wall to wall. It was held in like this auditorium area. When we get inside, I noticed this guy by the name of Big Butch, who promoted all of the go-go's in DC and the surrounding areas. As we began to talk that night, I found out that he was promoting this Bowie State homecoming event. You see, I was the lead singer for a go-go band called Those Boys, and I would usually run into Big Butch at some of our shows, as well as some of the shows that he promoted with major go-go bands like EU, Rare Essence, and Junkyard. The camera that recorded that night was set up right next to the PA system. It was one of those old gray and black big VHS cameras with the big tape in it. So as the night goes on, I walked over to where the artist backstage area was, and I ran into Do It All and Mr. Funky from Lords of the Underground, as they performed that night also before Tupac. And as I was talking to them, I looked back over my shoulder and I actually saw one of my homegirls with a young lady that I didn't recognize at the time. And I was like, "Yo, what's up?" So I asked her, "Yo, what you doing here?" And she was like, "I came to see Tupac." She said, "I know him personally." And I said jokingly, "You bullshitting." I said, "Well, introduce me to him." It really wasn't hard to believe that she knew Tupac because she was a beautiful red bone, and come to find out later, Tupac was crushing her cookies. For anybody that don't know what a red bone is, that's what they call light-skinned women back in the Maryland and DC area back then. She said, "Okay." So a little while later, before Tupac was about to go on stage, Tupac came from out of his dressing room and my homegirl started talking to him. And then she introduced me to Tupac like, "This my homeboy Delray. He do music too." We shook hands and said, "What's up?" Tupac had a bunch of other guys with him that I didn't really recognize at the time, that I would find out later when I looked at the video years later after all that has passed, that was Biggie in that Dallas Cowboys jersey performing. And I remember Tupac stopped his show and actually let him perform. And the other guys that were with him, I didn't know at the time either. That was the Live Squad. I remember Biggie performed Party and Bullshit. It was a pretty good night up until then. They had a couple of altercations inside, people fighting, security breaking it up, and then escorting the people outside, making them leave in the venue, so on and so forth. So now the show is over and everybody says their goodbyes and we get outside. Once we get outside, there's like this caravan of cars in front. There's like 3 to 4 white vans in the middle and cars behind, of people leaving the venue. I see girls running up to the van, not really knowing what's going on. And then I see a crowd of about 10 guys and they start yelling, "Fuck them." And words exchange with these guys standing on the grass and the people that were in the van. And the guys on the grass started throwing bottles at the vans. Yo, the crazy part is that the vans, they couldn't drive off because like I said, it was kind of like they were trapped. They had cars in front of them and then they had cars in back of them, people outside on the courtyard, guys talking to girls, girls talking to guys. People start, and so once people start hearing the commotion, then, people start coming towards where the commotion at, right? And then all of a sudden, you see the van doors open up and Tupac and his entourage jumps out the van, and the guys that were throwing the bottles and stuff, they start running. But they caught up to 2 of the guys. And they whipped them 2 guys' ass. They was beating and stomping on them and kicking them. And then you see the guys that kind of got away, they start running back towards where Tupac and them was at. And, Tupac and them, I guess, I don't know what they were thinking, you know, whether the guys had guns or knives or whatever kind of weapons or whatever. They run back towards the vans. They jump in the vans and shut the door. Some of the guys still throwing shit, you know, at Tupac, and while the other guys trying to help their partners get up. And then all of a sudden, you see the van door slide open. Tupac come out the motherfucking van with the pistol in his hand, hold it up in the air. Bap, 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 bap. He's like, thug life, motherfucker. Then everybody scattered like roaches. The craziest part was the guys that came back, you know, they still throwing shit or whatever. And the other guys, the other partners, they trying to help the guys up off the ground. They run again and leave the guys that they were trying to help on the ground again because they were so messed up they couldn't move on their own. Yo, that shit was so crazy. Yo, in real time, this shit was pandemonium, man. You know, and like I said, at this time, we standing over by like in the vestibule area where kind of like you can see like everything that's going on. And as we were leaving, you know, you could hear the police coming and all of that, you know, the sirens and all of that. By that time, Tupac was up out of there. Like the campus police and all of that. You know, they start pulling up and it's like, I'm like, these motherfuckers, they way too late, you know. And that was my first introduction into thug life in real time. Man, it was crazy. And, you know, to come and think about it, man, the crazy part is this all came about because Tupac was getting all the attention from the girls running up to the van and the whole 9 yards, trying to get chosen and all of that craziness. And, you know, these other guys, they basically was jealous. You know what I mean? And, you know, that was Tupac's story. Bowie State University, 1993 at the homecoming, man. Straight game.